Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our program today. My name is Aisha Dixon, and I'm the director of the UCLA Emeriti Retirees Relations Center. We are part of the Chancellor's Organization, and we strive to help support all retired staff and faculty at UCLA. Our programs provide a comprehensive approach to retirement. We help build civic engagement with our retirees. We do relationship building, wellness, financial security, and be a support to our future retirees with staff assembly and our staff on campus. Our department is myself and Maria Lebrano, and we hope that you get a lot from this program and that you enjoy it and share it with your friends. I will put in the chat our website and our YouTube account and our Twitter account and all of our contact information, so you can always share this recording with your friends or go back to it and email us questions and things like that. So today we have a really great program. I'm really glad you were able to join us. We have Darlene Mininni, and I said that right.
You said that right.
Yeah. So Darlene is a psychologist and learning and organizational development consultant at UCLA Human Resources. Her work focuses on researching, teaching, and coaching UCLA employees on evidence-based strategies that support resilience and success. So this has definitely been a challenging time for all of us. During this time is when we all should be working on ourselves and our life and get more resilient. So hopefully you're not overworked. That I know you're probably not overworked since everyone here is retired, or overwhelmed or stressed with the holidays or still being in a pandemic. So I do want to thank Maria for coordinating this program with Darlene. We just wanted to make sure that we all going to the holiday season, we'll try to navigate these challenging times and have a good mental health resource for everyone. So I'll be adding more things to the chat. As of right now, you do not have the option to unmute yourself. I will allow that towards the end when we have our Q&A section. But if you have questions, please feel free to type them in the chat and we will answer them throughout the program. So without any more to say, Darlene, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. Well, thanks so much, Aisha, for inviting me. And Maria, I really appreciate it. I'm going to share my screen with you right now. And let's do that. Let's get this here. There we go. Everybody see that? Okay. So yeah, as Aisha was saying, I think this is a topic, obviously, that's relevant whether you're working or retired or wherever you are in your life. Resilience is something that I think we could all use a little bit more of. And I know Aisha gave you a little bit of my background. I have been working on the campus for, it seems like my whole life. I went to graduate school at UCLA, and I've been teaching emotional intelligence skills for a very long time. Started with undergrads, and now I work with staff and leaders and just giving them the skills that they need to be more effective in their life. So what we're going to be talking about today is the idea of resilience. What is it? Why does it matter? And most importantly, how can you get more of it? And my goal is by the end of today's program that you'll have some really concrete skills that you can use to be more resilient. And so just to kind of give you a little heads up here, I have a presentation. Obviously, I have some slides. What we'll also be doing is there'll be an opportunity for you to ask questions, to make comments, which I hope people will be comfortable participating in the chat. Love to hear your thoughts. There will also be a handout. At the end of the program, there'll be a handbook that Aisha will be putting into the chat that you can download immediately. She'll also follow up with an email with the handbook as well. And we're going to be doing some individual exercises. They're optional, but if you want to partake in them, and I encourage you to do that, you might want to have a pencil or a paper or just something to be able to write on so that you can do that. So let's just get started here. And want to just preface what we're going to talk about by saying that resilience is something that it really takes a village. I think it's a buzzword right now. You hear so much about resilience, and kind of sometimes these words that we'll get really tired of hearing. And I think part of the reason is that it's this feeling that I have to be resilient no matter what's happening. It's all on me. And I tend to think that resilience is a larger effort. It does take a village. We need social support in our home communities, and support in our broader communities, in our policies. It's really a bigger picture to promote our resilience and well-being. At the same time, there are things that we can do to increase our own resilience and well-being. And those are the kinds of things that I'm going to be sharing with you today. And so I want to start off by asking you this simple question, and that is, what one or two things have you been doing to take care of yourself during these challenging times? And if you could just put a few thoughts into the chat, I would love to hear it. And I know when I've taught this workshop before, people have told me that they really get a lot out of it when people share their thoughts and what they're doing and what they're thinking. They find it incredibly helpful. And this kind of goes back to the community building aspect of resilience. So I'd love it to hear some of the things. So we have Eileen exercising, Susan walks on the beach. This is the beauty of living in LA. Angela, daily yoga and meditation. Jerry's got exercising and gardening. So taking classes, Michelle. So yeah, there's a lot of things that we could be doing. You might feel like, I'm not really doing anything. Well, what would you aspire to do? What would you like to do? Walking, meditating, playing an instrument. Anthony, yes, that's a very calming, soothing thing. Eating well, Sid says, sleeping well. So there's a lot of things here that we could be doing to take good care of ourselves. And just to kind of share my own, for me, I have found that exercise, I think a lot of people said this, we have gardening, a lot of exercising, painting, Patricia's painting, Angela's praying, keeping a gratitude journal. These are all fantastic things to help take care of ourselves. I've been trying to get out of the house every day. Right now, I'm working 100% remote. So I am in my office all day. And so I try to make a point to get out, even just to look at out the window and see the trees and do that. I've also been making a point to try to get away from Zoom a little bit. And even if you're not working in an office daily on Zoom, you might still be connected to your laptop or your computer a lot, staying in touch with people or just working or whatever you may be doing. And I came across this research that shows that we really need a break from our computers, that it's a great stressor on our brains to not have breaks on our computers. And so for those of you who spend a lot of time on your computers, you might want to find ways to step away and just have a little bit of time to, take off from your computer. So let's start by looking at some of the things. And thank you so much for sharing your thing, walking. Sunsets, I like that one, Vivian. A lot of things that other people have shared with me is reading. A lot of people are reading. A lot of people talking about cooking. And so these are all fantastic things to be mindful and intentional about taking good care of ourselves in our day-to-day lives. So let's talk about what we mean when we talk about resilience. So resilience is simply the ability to keep going when things are hard. And I know that life throws a lot of challenges at us. And I think in these last 2 years, it's been particularly relevant. I think all of us have had different challenges that we may be facing, but they have been challenges nonetheless. And so, but there is good news as it relates to resilience, and that is that resilience is a skill. So you're not necessarily born with resilience. You learn it the way you learn to play the piano or you learn to drive a car, and you can learn to develop your resilience skills. And a lot of it has to do with mastering stress, mastering uncertainty. And the more you practice the skills, the better you get. So let's start our lesson in skill building for resilience from somebody that you may all know. Do people know who this is? Put in the chat if you know who this is. If you're a real true Bruin, You will know who this is. Does anybody know? Well, if you've been on campus, there we go. Angela's John Wooden. Yes, John Wooden. If you've been by Pauley Pavilion, you see a big statue of John Wooden. He is one of the most winning coaches of all time. And one of the things that he told his basketball players when they were facing difficult situations was, don't let what you cannot do interfere with what you can do. In other words, keeping your focus on where you have control. And this is something that people who are resilient have a tendency to do. They keep their focus on things that they can control. So you might ask, well, what should I focus on? And looking at the areas of what you can control and the things that really matter to you. And there are a lot of things that might fall into this category. But today we're going to look specifically at our mental fitness and how we might have control over that in challenging times. So we hear a lot about physical fitness. A lot of you have said you're walking, you're exercising, and that's wonderful. And we are doing things. We may be taking our 10,000 steps, we may be swimming, we may be dancing. And all of those things are going to help you get your body stronger, make your body more flexible. There are also things you can do to make your mental well-being stronger and more flexible. And so what some of the data is finding is that when we develop that ability to strengthen our mental flexibility, we actually can improve our health, improve our relationships, and even live longer. Some studies suggesting up to 7 years longer when we use some of the most simple skills to develop that. So I want to talk to you about some of those skills. And the first one has to do with looking at the concept of mindset, our mindset. And I want to share a story with you about Ellen Langer. She is a social psychologist from Harvard University. And she, in 1978, put together a study that some people at the time thought was really crazy. And what she wanted to see is if she could impact the aging process by shifting the mindset of people. So what she did is she enlisted a group of healthy men at the time in 1979 who were roughly between the ages of 75 and 80. And she sequestered them in a retreat center in New Hampshire. I don't know what it looked like, but we're going to use this picture to imagine what it might have looked like. And in this attempt to turn back the clock, I want to read to you what she told the men. She said, what I want you to do is we're going to attempt to turn back the clock on your physical aging 20 years to 1959. So again, it's 1979, 20 years earlier was 1959. And we are not asking you to act for the next 5 days as if it's 1959. We're asking you to let yourself be who you were in 1959. Now, we have no pictures of who these men were or what they look like, so we're going to use a proxy of these guys here from the movie Going in Style, Morgan Freeman, Michael Caine, Alan Arkin, just to kind of imagine what their experience might be like. So they went into the retreat center, and to really make it easy for them to be who they were 20 years ago, there were cues and prompts all over the retreat center. And in everybody's room was this week's issue of Time magazine with our current Queen Elizabeth, 33 years old. They got to watch the #1 show on television, Twilight Zone. They got to listen to a speech on the radio from our current president, Dwight D. Eisenhower. They got to listen to music by the #1 pop singer, Ella Fitzgerald. And they got to watch the All-Star game, this summer's All-Star game, with some of our best players today. And they lived in this mindset for 5 days. And when the 5 days were up, they put them through a battery of tests. And I want to read to you what Dr. Langer found in these men. She said, after only 5 days, the changes were dramatic. The men's vision and hearing had improved. Their memories were sharper. Their hand strength and dexterity increased. Their joints were more flexible. Their scores on intelligence tests were higher. They acted more independently, and evidenced by before and after photos, their faces looked an average of 3 years younger. So nothing was different about these men for these 5 days, except where they placed their attention and their mindset. So the question is, how is this supposed to help you? You're supposed to travel to New England, or what are you supposed to do? Well, this is a clue. Let's delve a little bit further for another clue to see how this can actually help us. And this picture is a drawing of cave drawings from early humans of over 1 million years ago. And one of the things that we know about our ancient ancestors is that their brains evolved in a certain way to actually scan our environments constantly and look for everything that could be going wrong. Now, why would our brains do that? Well, because Mother Nature wanted to protect us and keep us safe from lions and attacking tribes and bad weather. So our brains always looked around for anything that could go wrong in our world. And this brain, this ancient brain, turns out that the people who actually survived these difficult times, it was those people with that brain. Fast forward to us, and we have inherited that. And this constant looking around with what may go wrong, we have is called the negativity bias. And so some people are more inclined to do it than others, but we all have a tendency to notice the things that go wrong more than the things that go right. And it's not a personality trait. It's a biological trait. So what we need to do, what we learn from Ellen Langer and our ancient brains, how it relates to you and me and our resilience, is that we need to learn to be intentional about where we put our focus. Just like the men in the New Hampshire retreat were intentional about being who they were in 1959. And we need to look for ways that we can override this natural negativity bias so that we can become more resilient in our life. Now, I want to be really clear when I talk about training our minds. I'm not talking about positive thinking, all right? And we hear a lot about, think positive, look on the bright side, things could be worse. And what I have found is that when you try to slap on a happy face when you're really not feeling that, sometimes it just can make it worse. And now if you do find that this is helpful for you, then you should definitely do it. At the same time, I find that for many people, it's actually not helpful and it doesn't feel authentic. And what resilient people tend to do more than positive thinking is they are realists. They engage in realistic thinking with a very specific twist to it. And that is that they see things as they are, but not worse than they are. So they recognize that life is full of challenges and difficult situations and things that we really don't want to have in our life. And that is very real. We don't dismiss it. We don't diminish it. We look at it for what it is. And at the same time, we know that it's possible that good things can coexist with the things that are difficult. And so there is a term for this, a strategy for this, and to build resilience, and it's called noticing something good. And that is simply making a concerted effort every day to be aware of what is going right in your life, just as much as you can see what is going wrong in your life. And what studies have found is when people intentionally do this over a 10-week period, their brain structures can change and their resilience can be improved up to 25%. So what would that look like? It might be when you wake up in the morning, before you hop out of bed, maybe you notice the sunlight coming through your window, or you notice how soft your blanket is, or you notice the good cup of coffee that you have. And you just intentionally focus on these things. Now, one of the things that I questioned about this, because I'm kind of a skeptic, was this is a really nice exercise, but what if stuff is going on in your life that's very intense? It's very challenging. How is noticing the sun coming through your window really going to help? Well, psychologist Martin Seligman taught these type of resilience exercises along with a battery of other exercises to troops that were deployed in Iraq. And of course, you know that that is one of the most challenging situations you could possibly be in. And they separated them into a control group and the one that was learning these skills. And what they found is that the group that was practicing these skills regularly, their anxiety levels went down, their coping skills went up, and their resilience went up. So if you'd like, I'd like to share with you one of these practices, and we can do it right now. And that's where you write 5 things that happened today that were good since you woke up. And I specifically say since you woke up because we want to make it a little harder to kind of take the time frame and make it a little tighter and really look for those things that went well today. You know, it might be that you got to pet your dog, or when you opened the refrigerator, there was food in it. It doesn't matter how small it is, write down 5 things. And when you write them down, don't write them down like you're writing out your list to go to Ralph's or Trader Joe's, okay? I want you to write it down and really feel what it is about these things that feels good to you, okay? If you have more than 5 things, feel free to write that. But we're going to shoot for 5 things. And again, really feel these things. And if you finish before the 2 minutes are up, just read the list over and imagine in your mind what it was like to have those things. And as the smaller, the better. Okay. We're looking for the smallest gifts of gratitude that we have in our life. So let's go down and just take your pencil and write down. We'll take 2 minutes to do that. And I'll let you know when the 2 minutes are up.
You want us to write about things that are good for our personal life, or just in general as like, you know, that's the globe, the world, or just a personal reflection of ourselves?
A personal reflection. Since you woke up this morning, whatever time you woke up, what has gone right for you from then until now? What has gone right? The smallest of things. When you turned on your shower, the water was warm. You know, a good friend called you. And if you finish the list, just really look at it and re-experience the feeling that the 5 things gave you. If you have more than 5 things, go ahead and write that. Hi, Denise. I just saw you there. Hi. Okay, so we're going to come back now. So when I have done this in the past with groups, they've consistently told me that they found it incredibly helpful to hear other people's lists. They found it inspiring, they found it uplifting, and it really helped them look at their own lives in new ways. And I would love it if anybody would like to unmute themselves and share whatever you feel comfortable sharing on your list. Would anybody want to do that? I would just really love to hear some of the things on your list. Anik, am I saying your name right?
Yes. Okay. I'm just unmuted. Yes. My name is Anik.
Thank you, Anik.
What I wrote is woke up in a nice, warm, cozy bed.
Okay. Nice.
Really enjoyed it. A friend called.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to exercise.
Mm-hmm.
I have no pain.
Okay.
And as I was writing notes from the beginning of the session today, I realized my handwriting was not as wobbly as usual.
Nice.
So which was really surprising, happily surprising.
That's great. And what's interesting and what's so great about your list, Anik, is that not only you noticed what you had, but you noticed what you didn't have. You didn't have wobbliness in your hand, right? You didn't have pain in your body. We don't tend to notice what we don't have, right? So until we have it and then it's gone. So I love that about your list. That's very inspiring. Thank you so much for sharing. Can we get one other person before we go on to share their list? I find that extremely helpful.
Hi, this is Carol. Sid.
Hi, Carol.
Hi.
Sid, hi.
Sid, I signed into Sid. Well, I live alone now, and I have one old cat, and so when I hear her in the morning meowing, that's a good thing because it means she's up and she's hungry.
Mm-hmm.
I love sitting down with my coffee and my paper.
Mm-hmm.
I texted a couple of friends, and I laughed at a funny cartoon in the paper today and shared it on Facebook.
Okay. I love that list. You're observing that you're laughing. We don't notice that we laugh, but the lightness in our body that provides us. And we can, at UCLA, as you may know, Norman Cousins is a seminal figure, and the work that he's shown on our well-being of how he healed his physical illnesses by watching comedies and funny movies and all the work on that. And so not only having an opportunity to laugh, but noticing that you are laughing. Like, look at me. I'm in this moment, I'm laughing. In this moment, I have peace. It may last for 10 seconds, but it's there. And if I could feel it for 10 seconds, then I'm capable of feeling it. So I love this. I really encourage you to continue this. They have found that if you can do this, find a way to do it every day, in the morning, at night, whenever you want. And if you really want to be an overachiever and challenge yourself, see if you can make your list each day different from the day before. You can't include anything you put the other day. So if you put, I woke up, can't put that. My bed is soft, can't put that. You've got to find new things that are going well, that went right. And then again, this is not diminishing the fact that we have challenges. They are there. They will always be there. But it's highlighting the fact that we can also have good things in the midst of challenge. Okay. So that's one exercise that has been researched and shown to be quite effective. The next thing I want to do is to move on and look at the way we can enlist our physical body and our nervous system to help us become more resilient. And a lot of times when we're facing challenges, we might feel very on edge, wound up, overwhelmed, tense. And so we can use our physical body, some simple exercises to help us. And one of the exercises that have been particularly helpful for people and has been studied quite a lot looks at deep breathing. And what the science is showing us is that we can turn on a calming part of our nervous system through some of these deep breathing exercises, that fight or flight that we get into when we get stressed out and overwhelmed, and we ruminate and we worry about what's going to happen tomorrow. And it's such a normal feeling. I feel that way at times. And this can reduce that fear response and the burnout, whatever's going on in your life that might be feeling like it's just too much. So the one technique that I happen to like is something I call 3-3-6 breathing. And this is a technique that I taught my undergraduate students. I had a course that I taught through the School of Public Health to help undergrads be more successful with the stresses of college. And of all the things I taught them, many, many tools, this is the one that they kept coming back to and practicing over and over again. And so I would really like to show it to you. And then once I show it to you, we could do it together. And basically, it's pretty simple. You just sit in any way that's comfortable for you, and you relax your body. And then you'll breathe in through your nose to the count of 3. You'll hold that breath and exhale through your mouth to the count of 6. Now, what you'll notice is that your exhale through your mouth is going to be longer than your inhale. And that's because you're going to get 20% more oxygen to your brain when your exhale is longer and then you inhale. And it is the spark that turns on the parasympathetic nervous system, which is that calming part. Now, if you do 3-3-6 breathing and you find that's kind of a lot, I get a little bit dizzy, that's okay. Do 2-2-4, do 1-1-2. Don't worry about the numbers. What you want to focus on is just that you want your exhale to be longer than your inhale, okay? So if you'd like to give it a try, let's try it together. You can close your eyes or you can keep them open. You can shut off your camera or you can keep it on. It's really up to you. We're going to do it 3 times. So sit in any position that feels relaxing to you. And we're going to breathe in through your nose, 2, 3, hold, 2, 3, exhale through your mouth, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, inhale, 2, 3, hold, 2, 3, exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, inhale, 2, 3, hold, 2, 3, exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And just sit for a moment quietly. And maybe you could put in the chat how that makes you feel. How does it feel doing that exercise for you? Again, we're trying to enlist our nervous system and our natural abilities of our body to help us deal with whatever challenges life is throwing at us. And Jerry said, relaxed. That gentle voice gestures help it along. Okay, Maria, thank you. So what we did is actually, we sent a message without speaking, really, to our nervous system to tell our nervous system that in this moment, we're safe. Whatever might be going on around us in our life and in our worries and on our daily issues that we all are dealing with, that in this moment, our nervous system doesn't need to fight, doesn't need to run, doesn't need to do anything to protect us, that we are okay and we're safe. And that is really what we just told our nervous system, so it can slow our heart rate down, strengthen our immune system, and just, these are all the things that help our health and all of those things. So what some of the studies from Harvard have shown, that when people practice these types of exercises for about 10 minutes a day, and for about 2 months, you can actually change your brain. And so, Sid says, I do regularly with hands overhead and slowly lower as I exhale. Your pain doctor said that you try that and it's worked for it. Thank you. That's great. I saw you doing that with your hands over your head. So what, you find whatever works for you. This is, Vivian says this has been used by yogis for many. Yes, that's absolutely right, Vivian. There's a term called ujjayi breathing, where we breathe out distinctively. So there's a lot of things that you can do. And if you're interested in learning about breathing, there's a fantastic book that just came out from James Nestor called Breathe. It's been on the New York Times bestseller list. Fantastic book all about our breath and how it can help us. You can download the audio if you're like me and you're doing a million things and you don't have time to sit down and read. You can listen to it as you're cooking dinner. It's very, very interesting, and I think you might like that. So those are some of the things. Let's kind of look at what we've got so far. And what we said is that our building our resilience, there are specific things that we can do to build our resilience. And let me get here we go. What we said is that our brains are designed to worry. So that is our inheritance from our ancestors to keep us safe. It's designed to do that. So it's not a character flaw if you're worrying a lot. Our brains are just trying to keep us safe. And when you notice that you're ruminating or worrying a lot, you just want to shift your attention to one of the strategies perhaps that we talked about. And one of those strategies came from John Wooden. And John Wooden told us to focus on what you can control and not on the things that are out of your control. And so think about that. What are the things that you actually can control? And that will help you feel more empowered in challenging times. The other thing we learned is that resilient people see things as they are, but not worse than they are. So they don't slap on a happy face and make believe everything's okay if they don't feel that way. At the same time, they don't see things as worse than they are. We also talked about notice the good exercise and find 5 things each day that are right, that worked, that went well for you. And some people have tried this where if you're living with other people, when you have dinner, go around the table and everybody share 5 things that went well. If you're on the phone or you're on a Zoom call with somebody, a friend, a relative, say, hey, before we start talking and checking in and seeing how you're doing, let's talk about each share 5 things. So this goes back to what I said when we started. Resilience takes a village, and helping each other be resilient. Some offices can do this before their staff meetings. Let's just go around the table and share what's right. We're actually changing our brain structures when we do this, getting in the habit of doing that. Another thing to build our resilience is to do 3-3-6 breathing. You can do it in the morning when you wake up. It's really good. And I do this a lot at night. If I'm having trouble sleeping, my mind is going and I can't get to sleep, I might just close my eyes and do this breathing, or just notice how soft my pillow is. And when my mind wanders, I just bring it back to my breath, into that moment. So these are things that can soothe our nervous system and help make us more resilient. And then we come back to where we started. And I asked you to share some of the things that you're doing to take care of yourself. And you shared things like exercising and talking to friends and meditating and cooking. And I really encourage you to keep up the habit of caring for your own well-being, because that's such a big part of becoming resilient. And so I want to end our time together, and then we'll have time for questions. What one thing will you do differently in your life or your work starting today based on some of the things that we shared today? And I really would like it if you could write it down, because we know that you're 42 times more likely to do it if you write it down. And if you'd like to be so kind as to even write it in the chat for us all to see, because maybe you could help us come up with ideas of things maybe we didn't think to do that you're going to do. Maybe you're just going to notice when you're feeling overwhelmed and stressed and just say, oh, that's just stress. What can I do to feel better in this moment? Jerry's going to try to do some more breathing exercises and try to think specifically, when might I do them? Will I do it when I wake up? Will I do it at night? Maybe I'll do it when I get in my car, before I turn on my ignition, I'll do it. Maybe I'll do it in the shower. So try to really think about the specifics of it. Maybe you'll notice the good in your life. When will you do that? Write 5 things. When might you do that? So, Sid might continue to do her exercises over her head. Denise is going to do 3-3-6 on a regular basis and consistently focus on the 5 good things every morning. Maria, I loved how one of the participants noticed that something was not wrong in her self-reflection. And I think this is a good practice. And that's true. So, and I love that too, because a lot of times in life, you'll hear people say, it wasn't until this really bad thing happened that I realized to be thankful for what I do have. And so that's a great thing too. Think a good thought about myself. Yes. And maybe say something to yourself that you can believe. This is different from a positive thought, but I'm going to take it one step at a time. I'm going to do my best. I can get through this. I've gone through things that are much harder before. And so if that works for you, we're all a little different. And so you got to find the thing that works best for you. Angela said, focus on what I can control and 5 good things. So these are all, there's so many more things that we can do to be resilient, but these are just some of the things in our time together that I wanted to share with you. And Aisha is going to put into the chat a link to a handbook that shares some of these highlights of what we've talked about today, if you want to review them and look at them again. She's also she's shared with me, sending everybody an email with this link. So if you want to share it with other people, I encourage you to do that, because resilience is a community sport. And the more people that you can enlist in your tribe to be resilient, a lot of you talked about friends. What was going right was a phone call from a friend, staying connected to people. And I know that right now, and everything that's going on, it's been so challenging to stay connected to people that we love, to give people a hug. We've all really struggled with being isolated. And so even if you do it on the phone or on Zoom, find ways to talk about these things and to share these things. It's been really, really, really helpful. Vivian's saying, focus on the positive rather than the things that negative impact me. In other words, focus on things I can control. And listen, and if you find yourself not, thinking terrible things or whatever, so what? Don't criticize yourself. Hey, there's me. There's that thing I do. What else could I do in this moment? Hey, I know, I'll look out the window at the birds. So criticizing yourself is against what we're trying to do. This is how our brain is wired. This is our inheritance. That's just the way it is. I do it too. I'm the same way. And that's why I do all these things for myself, because we all have this brain. And so this is what we do. So I'd love it if anybody has any questions, and you could put it in the chat, or you can unmute yourself. I'm going to stop sharing. And any ideas or thoughts or Nick says
everyone can go ahead and unmute themselves if they have questions. I'd love to hear some feedback about how everyone has been this year with being resilient, how you found that sort of peace within your personal life or professional life of being resilient, or if you've had a situation where you had to be resilient. I think I'll speak for myself. I think it's been challenging to kind of figure out your whole life on a computer and how we can adjust our daily lives to make time for ourselves. I think in the beginning, I think we were all kind of juggling with working and staying at home, and it's hard not to just check emails all day. So I've made a point to give myself time to go for a run or listen to music or bake 1,000 loaves of sourdough bread, because it's something that's just, it helped relax me. It gave me a structure. It helped me be more into myself, because otherwise we'll just email and work 24/7. It's hard to just put a hard stop on things and realize, there's more to just watching CNN or Fox News all day. You have to disconnect to just enjoy the life that's around you.
Yeah. One thing that I found weirdly, oddly soothing is I don't know why, I sweep my garage. I go out in the garage with a broom and it just makes me feel better. I don't know why. We could read into this, but whatever little thing makes you feel better. I like, Anik says, tough not to plan and prepare for the worst when you are a professional planner. So nothing wrong with planning. Planning for the future. We just don't want to live there. Okay. We'll plan for the future and live in the present.
Very good saying.
Yeah, Toby, it's hard to remember to take care of yourself when you are caring for others and facing huge health challenges. I agree with that, Toby. It is not an easy thing, but even if you can find, it doesn't have to be like, I'm going to spend an hour at the gym. No, even a minute to step outside or even look out the window. They did a study when they looked at patients that were in hospitals. One was by a window with trees, and another was in a room without a window. And they found that the one that was in the window, the room that had the window and the trees, healed faster than the one that didn't have. So healing and taking care of yourself doesn't have to be some elaborate thing. I'm going to join a gym. It could be just taking a moment to look out and see that there are birds in that tree. And it could take 30 seconds. And that alone will reset your nervous system. And find little moments. You can even set your phone every hour to go off. And that's what I'm going to look out the window every hour and just look at the grass or look at the clouds. And then I'll come back. So it doesn't have to be a big thing. This whole self-care movement. I need to get a massage and take a bath and light candles. No, it could be the smallest thing. Listening to a song. Very small.
Hey, Maria, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I love, this was great. And I love that it was not just all about positive thinking. I think that's an important thing to point out, Darlene. So Thank you for that. Because, there is a lot of that. And I do think it's good to a certain extent, but I think it can lack substance, especially when we're dealing with these challenging times that we're dealing with.
Yeah.
So I really appreciated that piece of what you presented. So thank you for that.
And following up on that, Maria, I hate to be a science geek that I am. And then Angela, I want to hear your thoughts. But there's this, they found that when you're going through a difficult time, if you can name what you're feeling, it actually calms the nervous system. And Dr. Dan Siegel, who's a psychiatrist, coined the term name it to tame it. So if you can say or write or think, in this moment, I am so overwhelmed. I am so frightened. I am so worried. That doesn't feed the distress. It actually can help it. And if you can share it with another person, that's even better. So don't be afraid to say, oh no, I've got to think positive. I have to say good thoughts. No, it's okay to say, this is so hard and I'm really worried. I'm really frightened, Angela.
Love that.
Yes, thank you for saying that about naming the feeling, because that's another practice that I have started doing or consistently started doing during this pandemic. But I also, the other thing that I started doing is, instead of sitting around saying, how come my phone isn't ringing? I haven't heard from XYZ. I always initiate the call. I just started reaching out to people just saying hi. And when I started making space for that, I noticed that other people would call me and say hello. This is the retired lifestyle, when we're at home and we're not in the workplace. It makes such a big difference. And also texting people sometimes. And then the final thing I'd like to say is thank you so much for showing that slide on your brain on Zoom, because I have an intense training program that I'm a part of, training people to become yoga students. And in the very beginning, when we went online 100%, I noticed it took like 2 or 3 days for me to recover from being on Zoom.
Yeah, when you're on Zoom a long time, you're tapping into a different part of your brain because you don't have the social cues that you do in person. And that's why a lot of people, when this all started, were saying, I don't understand why I'm so tired. At the end of the day, I'm still doing the same stuff I always did. It's because your brain is working harder. So when you're working with your yoga students, finding, less time on Zoom can be very helpful.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Angela. And I love what you said, when people weren't calling me, I just picked up the phone and I called them, right? So that's where we could get in the rumination. I'm always the one who calls, nobody ever calls me. Then you can say, okay, I'm thinking these thoughts. What else can I think? I could think maybe I can call them, right? And the other word that will make us very sad is always. And never. People never call me. I'm always the one to call them. No, people haven't called me today. No one has called me yet. Maybe I'll call them, So we're just kind of observing ourselves, just observing what we do. Any other questions or thoughts or things that you want to share to help others or that you're finding helpful? For me, I find the breathing is extremely helpful. When I get upset, I get very nervous. And I find that if I just sit and do some of this breathing, I find it really, really helpful to do. Just kind of calm me down, and then the mind kind of follows suit. But that's the thing. You want to find your thing. That's my thing. Some people, your thing is running. Your thing is playing the piano. Your thing is cooking. Your thing is talking to somebody you love, petting your cat, putting your hands over your head, or writing in your journal, reading a book, praying, going to church or synagogue, or sweeping out your garage with a broom, whatever your thing is, you want to find your thing, because it's all different from each of us. We have different nervous system, different interests. Finding your thing and then just dedicating yourself to doing it, not hours and hours a day, just a few minutes. So as I mentioned, the link is in the chat for the handbook. And Anik says, being in nature. Yes, I didn't say that one. That's a great one. So many studies about the impact of nature on our nervous system. If you're lucky enough to live near nature, great. If not, if you could go somewhere just to see a tree, see some flowers, that's incredibly, so much research on how helpful that is. There's even a word for it for you research geeks. It's called biophilia. And just being near nature, even if you have a plant on your desk or next to in your kitchen, they've been shown that just something like so simple like that can calm your nervous system.
Yeah,
so
I think during this past 2 years, outdoor activities and supplies have skyrocketed. You couldn't find a bike to save your life.
I know, or gardening supplies, right?
Yeah,
I know.
So, I never touched a tomato plant until I was like, I'm gonna do tomatoes in my backyard. Why not? What else I got? I got nothing but time to watch and water my plants. So has anyone found any other ways to sort of de-stress this year? I mean, we all can binge watch Netflix 1,000 times, but I'm just curious as to any other feedback as to what helped us power through and still power through 20 some odd months later. So any other comments that people might have? I don't want to not have the time to answer questions or get some feedback before we finish this morning. I kind of want to call on some names, but I want to put people in a bad position. But I see my regulars, and I'm curious as to how you've been dealing with life. I mean, it's a bit different when you're retired. Yeah,
playing bridge, bird watching, watching nature. That's a really great one. That's compassion.
I think it's a bit challenging as well because, you know, Maria and I, we've been working with retired individuals most of our whole career. And whereas we're, you know, going to work every day and doing things with family and friends, when you don't have that space of work, that's a full 8 to 10 hour day commitment, it's hard to kind of fill in the blanks. And as much as we were staying away from others, you know, as Angela was saying, we had a phone tree where we were calling people and texting people and having people email each other just so you could have that personal connection, because so much of our identity is related to our office and our work and our colleagues. And when you don't have that 5 days a week anymore, it can be a struggle. And we often talk about that when we have our retirement workshops, because it's hard to disconnect, especially if you've been here 20, 30, 40 years. And your colleagues become your friends and your support system. It's hard not to see them across the hall or across the cubicle when you're just in a new environment. So hopefully people have gotten some things out of this, and writing children's stories is great, playing bridge. I want to hopefully everyone takes away something from today's workshop, and I will be sending up a follow-up email with that link. But any other parting words or things people want to say this morning? It's good to see everyone. I miss people. I think Patricia, are you? You're moving the camera. Okay. Well, any other final words you want to say, Darlene or Maria or anyone else here?
No, I just want to thank everybody for coming. And I think, to follow up on what Aisha just said, I think coming to these types of events you're being very intentional about your well-being. You could have watched this on YouTube and said, I'll just watch it and get the gist of it later and watch it. But by being here, you actually got to interact with other people. And that's kind of what we need to do for our resilience, is to build community and to connect with other people. Even if you didn't say anything or write in the chat, just in real time, seeing other people's faces, it can be very, very helpful. And so I, applaud you for taking the time to be here, and again, share these ideas with other people that you know, and build that sense with other people of being resilient together.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, okay, well, if we don't have any other comments or questions, I'm looking at the chat too. I love that, Vivian, just reinforcing all the ways of just being, just being. That's so much, that all we need right now is just to be. Well, hopefully we can, get together again soon. Don't know about when in person that'll happen. We'll just see kind of what campus does. And I know they have different regulations for groups and certain sizes, but we're still available to be reached at. You have our website. I think many of you are probably subscribed to our newsletter that goes out. What's today? It's December. Our final newsletter of the year will be going out next week. So it'll have a lot of information about December programs, January. This Friday, the Retirees Association is having a virtual party. So if I can put that in the chat really quickly, if I can quickly get to it. John Dahl is a part of the Retirees Association, and probably a few others here that are in the Retirees Association. So this Friday, let me see, it is 11 a.m. We will have a virtual party. It'll be a fun morning to just see each other and chat and hang out. So I'll put that in the chat, and I'll send it out via email tomorrow too. So hopefully you can join us tomorrow for our virtual party. Stay well, have a great weekend, and take care. Thank you, Darlene.
Thank you, everybody. And I mean, I'm happy to stick around if anybody has a question or wants to talk. I'm happy to linger a minute. But thank you all, and have a great holiday.
Thank you.
It was great.
Thanks, Darlene.
Thank you.
Thank you.